She was selling her wedding ring on a frozen sidewalk for the price of one meal when the man who destroyed her life walked past. Elena Whitmore, former literature graduate, former wife, former person, didn't recognize him at first. But Declan Mercer recognized her. And in that moment, looking at the woman his choices had broken, he understood that some debts can't be paid with money. Some wounds don't close. And some truths, once faced, will tear apart everything you've built to avoid them. This is their story, a reckoning years in the making. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button so I can see how far this story travels. Let's begin. The cold bit through Elena's coat like it had a personal grudge. She sat on the curb outside a bodega on Flatbush Avenue, her back against brick that had probably been warm once. In some other season, some other life. Her fingers were numb around the ring, white gold, simple band, inscription on the inside she couldn't bear to read anymore. She'd been sitting there for 40 minutes. 3 people had walked past. None of them stopped. The 4th person stopped. She didn't look up right away, kept her eyes on the sidewalk, on the gray slush pooling around the storm drain, on anything but the shoes that had planted themselves 2 feet from where she sat. Expensive shoes. Leather. The kind that didn't belong in this neighborhood, not on this corner where the bodega sold loose cigarettes and the apartment above it had a window covered in cardboard. How much? His voice was low, controlled. The kind of voice used to being heard the first time. Elena's throat was dry. $40. For the ring. Yes, it's worth more than that. She finally looked up. The man standing over her was tall, dark-haired, maybe late 30s. His coat was charcoal wool, well-tailored. His face was hard to read, sharp features, dark eyes that weren't looking at the ring but at her, with an expression she couldn't name. Not pity, something worse. I know what it's worth, she said quietly. I'm not asking what it's worth. I'm asking $40. He didn't move. Cars passed on the street. Someone shouted in Spanish from across the block. The moment stretched until it felt like elastic about to snap. What's your name? He asked. Elena hesitated. Something about the way he asked made the hairs on her neck stand up. Why does that matter? Answer the question. She should have told him to walk away. Should have stood up, pocketed the ring, found another corner. But she was tired in a way sleep didn't fix, and there was something in his tone that said he already knew the answer. Elena, she said. Elena Whitmore. The change in his expression was subtle but unmistakable. His jaw tightened, his eyes shifted just for a second, like he'd been hit and was deciding whether to show it. When he spoke again, his voice had lost some of its edge. You were married to Liam Whitmore. It wasn't a question. Elena's chest constricted. She tried to stand, but her legs didn't cooperate immediately. When she finally got upright, she was unsteady, one hand braced against the brick. I don't know you, she said, though even as she said it, something flickered in the back of her mind. Something about his face. Something she should remember. Yes, you do. He took a step closer, not threatening, but deliberate. We met once, 6 years ago, at your wedding. The memory came back in fragments. The reception hall. Too many people she didn't know. Liam's family, his brother. The older brother who came late, stayed an hour, left without saying goodbye. The one Liam never talked about except in vague, careful terms. The one whose name was mentioned in whispers. Declan, she breathed. Yeah. Her vision tunneled. The street noise faded into background static. She'd spent 6 years trying not to think about the Mercers, about the life Liam had been tied to, about the reasons he died. And now here was Declan, standing in front of her like a ghost made solid, staring at her like she was the haunting. I don't want your money, she said, shoving the ring back into her pocket. I don't want anything from you. Elena? Don't. Her voice cracked. Don't say my name like you have any right to it. He didn't respond immediately, just stood there, hands in his coat pockets, expression unreadable. A delivery truck rumbled past. The bodega owner came outside to smoke, glanced at them, went back in. When did you eat last? Declan asked. The question was so unexpected that Elena almost laughed. That's none of your business. When? Yesterday, maybe. I don't. She stopped, hated herself for answering. Why are you even here? I live 3 blocks over. Convenient. Not really. He exhaled slowly, vapor curling in the cold air. Come with me. Excuse me? There's a diner 2 streets down. You're going to sit, eat, and then we're going to talk. Elena stared at him. You're out of your mind. Probably, but you're coming anyway. The hell I am. Declan's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Less command, more. She didn't know what to call it. Exhaustion, maybe, or resignation. You're sitting on a sidewalk in 18-degree weather trying to sell your wedding ring to buy food, he said quietly. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a meal and a conversation. You can walk away after, but you're not spending another night hungry because you're too stubborn to accept help from someone you hate. I don't hate you, Elena said, then quieter. I don't know you well enough to hate you. Fair enough. She wanted to refuse, wanted to tell him to disappear back into whatever world he occupied, the one she'd been glad to be free of. But her stomach was empty and her coat was threadbare, and the truth was she didn't have anywhere else to be. Nowhere to go that was warmer than this corner, no one waiting who would notice if she didn't come back. 1 hour, she said finally. Then I leave. 1 hour. The diner was called Stella's, and it looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. Vinyl booze, checkerboard floor, a laminated menu with pictures of pancakes and omelets that glistened with too much grease. Declan led them to a booth in the back, away from the windows. Elena slid in, feeling the warmth of the place seep into her bones. It almost hurt. A waitress came over, middle-aged, tired smile, name tag that said Ruth. What can I get you folks? Declan didn't look at the menu. 2 coffees, for her, the steak and eggs, hash browns, toast. Bring orange juice, too. I didn't, Elena started. You don't have to order, he said, cutting her off, but not unkindly. Just eat when it comes. Ruth scribbled on her pad and walked away. Elena gripped the edge of the table, trying to steady herself. This didn't make sense. None of it made sense. Why are you doing this? She asked. Declan leaned back, arms crossed. He looked at her for a long moment, and she had the unsettling sense that he was cataloging everything. Her too thin frame, the shadows under her eyes, the coat with the torn lining she'd tried to sew shut with dental floss. Because I owe you more than a meal, he said. You don't owe me anything. That's not true. The coffee arrived. Elena wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the heat sink into her palms. Declan drank his black, no sugar. They sat in silence until the food came. A plate so full, Elena's chest tightened just looking at it. Eat, Declan said. She wanted to resist on principle, but the smell hit her, and her body made the decision for her. She picked up the fork, cut into the eggs, took a bite. It was the best thing she'd tasted in weeks. Or maybe she was just that hungry. Either way, she didn't stop until half the plate was gone. When she finally looked up, Declan was watching her with that same unreadable expression. Better? He asked. Don't do that. Do what? Act like you care. I'm not acting. Elena set down her fork. You don't get to do this. Show up, buy me breakfast, pretend like... She stopped, breathing hard. Your family destroyed my life. Liam is dead because of the world you dragged him into. So no, you don't get to sit there and pretend you're some kind of savior. Declan didn't flinch. You're right. That stopped her cold. I'm not here to be your savior, he continued. I'm here because I saw you on that corner and I realized something I should have realized years ago. Liam's death wasn't random bad luck, and what happened to you after, that wasn't either. What are you talking about? He leaned forward, elbows on the table. After Liam died, did anyone from the family reach out? Offer help? Make sure you were okay? Elena's throat tightened. No. Did anyone pay for the funeral? No. Did anyone check if you had a place to live, money, anything? She didn't answer, didn't need to. Declan's jaw clenched. That was my doing. I gave the order. No contact, no assistance. I told everyone to stay away from you. The diner seemed to tilt. Elena gripped the table. Why? Because I thought it was safer. For you and for us. I thought cutting ties cleanly was the right move. I thought. He stopped, exhaled hard. I thought a lot of things that turned out to be wrong. You thought it was safer? Elena's voice rose. I lost my apartment. I lost my job. I had nothing, no one, and you thought, I know. You don't know anything. You're right, I don't, but I'm trying to now. Ruth came by to refill their coffee. The interruption gave Elena a moment to breathe, to push back the wave of anger and grief that threatened to swallow her. When Ruth left, Elena spoke again, quieter this time. What do you want from me, Declan? He met her eyes. I want to fix what I broke. You can't. Maybe not, but I can try. She laughed, sharp and bitter. How? You're going to write me a check? Set me up in some apartment and call it even? No, I'm going to offer you a place to stay. My place. No strings, no expectations. Just a roof and food and time to figure out what comes next. Elena stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You're serious? Completely. I don't even know you. You know enough. That's exactly the problem. She pushed the plate away, suddenly nauseous. You want me to move into your house? Live under your roof? After everything? Yes. Why? Because I can't undo the past, but I can stop making it worse. His voice was steady, but there was something raw underneath it, something that sounded almost like desperation. You don't have to forgive me. You don't have to like me. But you shouldn't be on the street. And if my guilt can at least keep you warm and fed while you figure out your next step, then that's what it's going to do. Elena wanted to scream at him, wanted to throw the coffee in his face and walk out, but the exhaustion was back, heavier now, pressing down on her shoulders like a physical weight. This is insane, she said. Probably. I don't trust you. I wouldn't either. She closed her eyes, tried to think, but thinking required energy she didn't have. If I say yes, and I'm not saying I am, what happens? You come home with me. I show you to a room. You rest. Tomorrow, we figure out the details. And if I want to leave, you leave. No one stops you. Just like that. Just like that. Elena opened her eyes, looked at him, really looked. He didn't look like a man trying to manipulate her. He looked like a man carrying a weight he couldn't put down. She recognized the expression because she'd seen it in the mirror often enough. One night, she said finally. That's all I'm agreeing to. One night, and then I decide. Okay. And I want my own space. No attempts at conversation unless I start it. Done. And if I feel unsafe for even a second, you call the cops or you walk out. Whichever comes first. She nodded slowly. This was a mistake. She knew it was a mistake, but the alternative was another night in the shelter, or worse, another night on the street. And she was so tired of being cold. All right, she said. One night. Declan's house was in Brooklyn Heights, tucked on a quiet street lined with brownstones. It was the kind of neighborhood where people jogged with expensive strollers, and the coffee shops had names like Brew and Prose. Elena followed him up the steps to a 3-story building with black shutters and a door that looked like it cost more than her entire year's rent used to. Inside it was worse. High ceilings, hardwood floors, furniture that looked comfortable but untouched. Everything was clean, tasteful, and completely impersonal, like a hotel someone lived in but never made a home. This way, Declan said, leading her up a staircase to the second floor. He opened a door at the end of the hall. This is yours. The room was simple. A bed with a white duvet, a dresser, a window overlooking a small garden that was brown and skeletal in the winter light. There was a bathroom attached, clean, stocked with towels that looked brand new. If you need anything, I'm down the hall, Declan said. Kitchen's on the first floor. Help yourself to whatever. Elena stood in the doorway, not quite able to step inside. Why do you have a guest room that looks like no one's ever used it? Because no one has. You don't have people over? No. She turned to look at him. Why not? Declan's expression was carefully neutral. Because I don't like people. Then why am I here? Because you're not people. He stopped, started again. You're someone I owe. That's different. Elena wanted to argue, but she didn't have the energy. Fine. I'm staying one night. Tomorrow, I'm gone. Understood. He left without another word. Elena listened to his footsteps retreat down the hall, then stepped into the room and closed the door. She locked it. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and tried very hard not to cry. She failed. The first night, Elena didn't sleep. She lay on top of the covers, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the house settle. Every creak made her tense. Every distant sound from the street below felt like a warning. But nothing happened. No one knocked. No one tried the door. By the time pale light started filtering through the window, she was exhausted but still wired, her body refusing to believe it was safe. She got up, washed her face in the bathroom, the water was hot, almost shockingly so, and crept downstairs. The kitchen was at the back of the house, all white counters and stainless steel. Declan was already there, standing by the stove with a mug of coffee in one hand. "Morning," he said without turning around. Elena froze in the doorway. "You knew I was there. Old habit. I hear everything in this house." He gestured to the counter. "Coffee's fresh. Eggs if you want them." "I'm not hungry." "You're always hungry. You're just used to ignoring it." He cracked an egg into a pan. "Sit." "I don't take orders." "It's not an order, it's a suggestion based on the fact that you look like you're about to pass out." Elena bristled, but he wasn't wrong. She sat at the small table by the window, wrapping her arms around herself. Declan didn't say anything else, just cooked in silence, 2 egg sigs, toast, a little butter. He set the plate in front of her along with a fork. "Eat," he said. Then he took his coffee and left the room. Elena stared at the food. This was a game. It had to be. People didn't just do things like this, offer help without wanting something in return. But the eggs were there, and she was hungry, and so she ate. When she was done, she washed the plate in the sink and went back upstairs. The day passed slowly. Elena spent most of it in the room, sitting by the window and watching the street below. A few people walked past. A dog barked. Normal life, happening to normal people. She felt like she was watching from behind glass. Around 4 in the afternoon, there was a soft knock on the door. "Elena?" Declan's voice. "Can I come in?" "No." "I'm leaving some clothes outside the door. They might fit. If they don't, let me know, and I'll get something else." She waited until his footsteps retreated, then opened the door. There was a bag on the floor, jeans, a sweater, socks, all new with the tag still on. She brought it inside, closed the door, and sat on the bed holding the sweater. It was soft, gray, simple. She put it on. It fit. That night she cried again. But this time, she let herself sleep. The days began to blur. Elena didn't leave the house. Declan didn't push her. They fell into a strange, silent routine. He cooked, she ate. They avoided each other. He worked from home, she later learned, in an office on the 3rd floor. Sometimes she'd hear his voice, low and clipped, talking to someone on the phone. Business. The kind of business she didn't want to know about, but he never brought it near her, never mentioned it. The house stayed quiet. On the 4th day, Elena ventured outside for the first time. Just to the back garden. It was a mess. Overgrown, weeds choking the flower beds, a stone bench covered in dead leaves. She stood there for a long time, breathing in the cold air, feeling the weak winter sun on her face. It used to be nicer. She turned. Declan was standing in the doorway, hands in his pockets. "When?" she asked. "Before." "Before what?" He didn't answer right away, just looked out at the garden with an expression she was starting to recognize, regret, maybe, or something close to it. "Before I stopped caring," he said finally. Elena turned back to the garden. "Why'd you stop?" "Because caring meant remembering, and I didn't want to remember." "Remember what?" "People I lost, choices I made." He paused. "Liam used to sit out here. He liked the quiet." Her chest tightened. He never mentioned this place. He probably didn't want to. We weren't. Declan stopped, exhaled. We weren't close. Not after he married you. Why not? Because he got out. And I didn't. Elena looked at him, really looked. He was staring at the garden, but she had the sense he was seeing something else. Somewhere else. He tried to get me to leave, Declan continued quietly. Told me I didn't have to keep doing what our old man started, that there were other ways to live. I told him he was naive, that he didn't understand how things worked. And I was wrong. He understood fine, he just had the guts to walk away. Declan's jaw tightened. I didn't. Is that why he died? The question hung between them. Declan finally turned to look at her, and for the first time she saw something like pain in his eyes. Yeah, he said. That's why he died. Elena's breath caught. She wanted to press, to demand the full story, but something in his expression stopped her. This wasn't the time. Maybe there wouldn't ever be a time. I'm going back inside, she said. Declan nodded. Didn't follow. That night, for the first time, Elena unlocked her door before she went to sleep. A week passed. Then 2. Elena still told herself she was leaving. Every morning she'd wake up and think, today's the day. But every morning something stopped her. The warmth of the house, the food, the quiet, or maybe just the exhaustion of having nowhere else to go. She started spending more time in the garden. It gave her something to do. She'd clear the weeds, trim back the dead growth, uncover the bones of what the space used to be. Declan would watch sometimes from the kitchen window. She pretended not to notice. One afternoon, she found him sitting on the bench when she came outside. You're in my spot, she said. I'll move. No, stay. She sat on the other end. They didn't talk, just sat there in the cold, watching a bird hop along the fence. Why do you let me stay here? Elena asked eventually. Declan didn't look at her. I told you I owe you. That's not enough of a reason. It's the only one I have. She turned to face him. Do you think this makes up for it? For Liam? For what happened to me after? No. Then what's the point? The point, Declan said slowly, is that I spent 6 years pretending I didn't have a choice, that Liam's death was inevitable, that cutting you off was necessary, and then I saw you on that corner, and I realized I was lying to myself. He finally looked at her. I did have a choice. I made the wrong one, and I can't undo that, but I can stop pretending it didn't matter. Elena's throat tightened. You destroyed my life. I know. I lost everything. I know. And you think letting me sleep in your guest room fixes that? No, but it's a start. She wanted to hate him, wanted to scream at him, to make him feel even a fraction of what she'd felt. But sitting there in the dying light, looking at a man who clearly hated himself more than she ever could, she found she didn't have the energy. I'm not staying forever, she said quietly. I'm not asking you to. I'm going to leave. Okay. I mean it. I believe you. But she didn't leave. Not that day. Not the next. Winter deepened. The house stayed quiet. And somewhere in the silence, something shifted, small, fragile, but undeniably real. Elena started eating meals at the table instead of in her room. Declan started talking to her. Not much, but enough. They'd pass each other in the hallway and exchange a few words. Nothing deep, nothing that touched the raw places. But it was something. One night, Elena came downstairs to find Declan sitting in the living room with a glass of whiskey and a book he wasn't reading. Can't sleep? She asked. He looked up. Never can. Why not? Too many ghosts. She understood that. She sat in the chair across from him. What do you do when you can't sleep? Sit here. Drink. Wait for morning. Sounds lonely. It is. They sat in silence for a while. Then Elena spoke again, quieter this time. I dream about him sometimes. Liam, we're back in our apartment. Everything's normal. And then I wake up and remember he's gone and I'm... She stopped, swallowed hard. I'm here. Declan set down his glass. I'm sorry. For what? You didn't kill him. Didn't I? The question hung in the air. Elena looked at him, really looked, and for the first time she saw not the man who'd ruined her life, but the man who'd ruined his own. "What happened?" she asked. "The truth. Not whatever version you've been telling yourself." Declan was quiet for a long time, long enough that Elena thought he might not answer, but then he started talking, slow and deliberate, like every word cost him something. "There was a deal. Another family wanted territory. They made an offer. I said no. They pushed. I pushed back. Things escalated. They threatened people close to me. I didn't back down." He paused. "I thought I was being strong. Thought I was protecting what was mine. Liam told me to walk away, to give them what they wanted. He said no piece of ground was worth dying for. I told him he didn't understand, that if we showed weakness, we'd lose everything. And they killed him to make a point, because I wouldn't bend, because I thought I was untouchable." Declan's voice was flat, emotionless. "He died because I chose pride over sense. And after, I told myself it wasn't my fault, that he shouldn't have been involved, that he knew the risks." He looked at her. "But that was a lie. He died because I let him." Elena felt something crack open inside her chest. "You should have told me. Years ago. You should have—" "I know. I deserve to know." "You did. So why didn't you?" "Because I was a coward. Because telling you would have meant admitting what I'd done. And I wasn't ready to do that." He leaned back, closing his eyes. "I'm still not sure I am." Elena stood. Her hands were shaking. "I need to go upstairs. Okay?" She made it halfway to the stairs before she stopped, turned back. "Declan? Yeah? Thank you for telling me." He opened his eyes, looked at her like he wasn't sure he'd heard right. "You're thanking me." "I'm not forgiving you, but I'm thanking you. There's a difference." She didn't wait for a response. Just went upstairs, locked her door, and sat on the floor with her back against the bed. Her heart was pounding, her mind was racing, but underneath the anger and grief there was something else, something that felt almost like relief. The truth was out, and for the first time in years she didn't feel like she was drowning. The next morning, Elena woke to the sound of rain hammering the windows. She lay there listening, feeling the weight of last night's conversation settle over her like a second blanket. Declan had finally told her the truth. Not all of it maybe, but enough. Enough to confirm what she'd suspected for years, that Liam's death wasn't random, wasn't just bad timing or wrong place. It was a consequence, a price paid for someone else's choices. She got dressed and went downstairs. The kitchen was empty, but there was fresh coffee in the pot and a note on the counter in Declan's angular handwriting. "Had to go out. Back this afternoon. Help yourself to anything." Elena crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. Then she poured herself coffee and stood at the window, watching the rain turn the garden into a muddy mess. All her work from the past 2 weeks, the cleared beds, the trimmed branches, was getting pounded into the ground. It felt appropriate somehow. She spent the morning cleaning. Not because the house needed it, Declan kept everything pristine in that cold, unlived-in way, but because she needed something to do with her hands. She wiped down counters that were already clean, organized shelves that were already organized, scrubbed the stovetop until her fingers ached. Anything to keep her mind from circling back to the same question. What now? Declan returned just after 2, soaked through despite his coat. He hung it by the door and ran a hand through his wet hair, scattering droplets on the hardwood. "You didn't have to clean," he said, noticing the kitchen. "I needed something to do." "Fair enough." He moved to the coffee pot, poured what was left into a mug. "You eat lunch?" "I'm not hungry." "Elena." "I said I'm not hungry." He didn't push, just leaned against the counter, drinking his coffee and watching her with that unreadable expression he always wore. It was starting to irritate her, the way he looked at her like she was a problem he was trying to solve. "Stop doing that, she said. "Doing what?" "Looking at me like I'm broken." "I don't think you're broken." "Then what do you think?" Declan set down his mug. "I think you're surviving. And I think that takes more strength than most people have." Elena's throat tightened. She turned away, staring out at the rain-soaked garden. Don't do that either. Do what? Say things that sound nice. It doesn't change anything. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just telling you what I see. She whirled around. What you see? You don't see anything. You see a charity case, someone you can fix to make yourself feel less guilty. That's all this is. That's not true. Isn't it? You said it yourself. You owe me. This whole thing is about your guilt, not about me. Declan's jaw tightened. You're right. It started that way. But it's not just that anymore. Then what is it? He didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of rain against glass. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. I don't know. But it's not nothing. Elena wanted to argue, to push back, but she was too tired, too worn down by the weight of everything, the past, the present, the impossible tangle of anger and gratitude she felt toward this man who destroyed her life and then tried to piece it back together. I need air, she said abruptly. It's pouring. I don't care. She grabbed one of the coats hanging by the door, not hers, probably Declan's, too big in the shoulders, and walked out into the rain. It was cold and sharp, soaking through her clothes within seconds. She didn't stop. Just walked down the block, past the neat brownstones and their carefully maintained stoops, past couples huddled under umbrellas and a woman walking 3 small dogs in matching raincoats. She made it 2 blocks before she realized she had no idea where she was going. No destination. No plan. She stopped under the awning of a closed dry cleaner and leaned against the brick, breathing hard. Footsteps approached. She didn't have to look to know who it was. Go away, she said. Declan stopped a few feet from her, water dripping from his hair. He'd come after her without a coat. Not until you come back. I don't want to come back. Where are you going to go? I don't know. Anywhere. Somewhere that's not... She stopped, shaking her head. I can't do this. I can't live in your house and pretend like everything's fine. Like you telling me the truth makes up for 6 years of hell. I never said it did. Then why am I still there? Because you don't have anywhere else to be. Yet. He took a step closer. And because, despite what you think, you're not ready to leave. You don't know what I'm ready for. Maybe not. But I know what it looks like when someone's running because they're scared versus running because they're ready. And you're scared. Elena's hands curled into fists. Of course I'm scared. You think I'm not terrified every single day? I wake up in your house and I don't know if I'm safe or if I'm making the stupidest mistake of my life. I eat your food and I wonder what you want in return. I listen to you talk about Liam and I don't know if I'm supposed to forgive you or hate you or... Her voice cracked. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You're not supposed to do anything. You're just supposed to be here. That's all. That's not enough. It's all I'm asking. The rain kept falling. A car drove past, tires hissing on wet asphalt. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the cold seep into her bones. I'm tired, she said quietly. I know. No, I mean, I'm so tired, Declan. I'm tired of being angry. I'm tired of not trusting anyone. I'm tired of waking up and not knowing what the point is. She opened her eyes, looked at him. And I'm tired of feeling like I owe you something for keeping me alive. You don't owe me anything. Then why does it feel like I do? Declan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Because you're used to everything having a price. And you can't imagine someone doing something without wanting something back. But I'm not asking for anything, Elena. Not forgiveness, not gratitude, not... He stopped, exhaled hard. I'm just asking you to stop running long enough to catch your breath. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she wasn't running, that she was fine on her own. But the lie wouldn't come. Because he was right. She was running, had been running since Liam died, and she was so damn tired of it. Okay, she said finally. Okay? I'll come back. For now. They walked back in silence. By the time they reached the house, they were both soaked through and shivering. Declan handed her a towel without a word and disappeared upstairs. Elena stood in the entryway, dripping on the hardwood, and wondered what the hell she was doing. That night, she didn't lock her door. The days fell into a new rhythm after that. Elena stopped trying to leave, stopped telling herself it was temporary. She still didn't trust Declan, not completely, but she stopped expecting the worst from him. And slowly, carefully, they began to talk. Not about the big things, not yet, but about small things. Books, food, the way the light hit the garden in the late afternoon. Declan, it turned out, had read more than she expected. Not literature, but history, philosophy, the kind of dense texts people read when they're trying to make sense of their own lives. Elena found herself arguing with him about ideas, debating points just to see how he'd respond. He was sharp, precise, and stubborn as hell. It was almost refreshing. One evening, she found him in the living room with a chessboard set up on the coffee table. "You play?" she asked. "Used to, not in years." "Why'd you stop?" "No one to play with." He gestured to the chair across from him. "You know how?" "Liam taught me." Something flickered across Declan's face. "Did he?" "Yeah, I wasn't very good." "Want to try again?" Elena hesitated, then sat. They played in silence, the only sound the click of pieces on wood. She was rusty, made mistakes, lost her queen early. Declan didn't go easy on her. He won in 15 moves. "Another?" he asked. "Why not?" They played 3 more games. She lost all of them, but each time she lasted a little longer. By the 4th game, Declan had to actually think about his moves. "You're getting better," he said. "Or you're getting worse. Maybe both." She almost smiled, caught herself. "Don't get used to this." "Wouldn't dream of it." But they played again the next night, and the night after that. It became a routine. Dinner, then chess, then Declan would pour himself whiskey and Elena would drink tea, and they'd sit in the living room until one of them got tired enough to sleep. They didn't talk much during these nights. Didn't need to. The silence between them had shifted from hostile to something almost comfortable. 3 weeks after the rain-soaked argument, Elena woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of breaking glass. She bolted upright, heart hammering. Voices downstairs, low, angry. Then Declan's voice, sharp and commanding. "Get out!" She crept to the door, opened it a crack. Light spilled up from the first floor, more voices. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear, threatening. "I said get out!" Declan again. Calmer now, but with an edge that made Elena's skin crawl. "You don't get to make that call anymore." The second voice was unfamiliar. Male, older. Elena pressed closer to the gap in the door. "This is my house, my call. Not according to the people who matter. I'm done with those people." A pause. Then laughter, harsh and humorless. "You think you can just walk away? After everything? You're out of your mind." "Probably, but I'm still done." "You've got 48 hours to reconsider. After that, we stop being polite." Footsteps. The front door opening, closing. Silence. Elena waited, counting her heartbeats, then slowly went downstairs. Declan was standing in the living room, staring at the broken window. Rain was coming in, soaking the floor. Glass glittered on the hardwood. "You should go back upstairs, he said without turning around. "What was that?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "Declan." He finally looked at her. His expression was unreadable, but there was something tight around his eyes, something that looked like fear. "Go upstairs, Elena." "Not until you tell me what's going on." "It's business, old business. It doesn't concern you. It concerns me if people are breaking your windows in the middle of the night." He exhaled slowly. "I told you I was trying to get out. That doesn't mean everyone's okay with it." "Who is that?" "Someone who thinks I owe him something." "Do you?" "Not anymore." Elena crossed her arms. "So what happens in 48 hours?" "Nothing. I handle it." "How?" "That's not your problem." "Stop doing that. Stop shutting me out like I'm fragile." Declan's jaw tightened. "I'm not. This isn't about you being fragile. This is about keeping you safe." "I didn't ask you to keep me safe." "I know, but I'm doing it anyway." They stared at each other across the broken glass. Rain pattered through the window. Finally, Elena spoke, quieter now. If I'm staying here, I deserve to know what I'm staying in the middle of. Declan ran a hand through his hair. You're right, you do. He gestured to the couch. Sit. I'll tell you. They sat. Declan poured himself a whiskey, drank half of it in one swallow, then started talking. After Liam died, I kept working, kept running things the way I always had. But something changed. I couldn't justify it anymore. The violence, the threats, all the things I told myself were necessary. They stopped feeling necessary. They just felt ugly. He paused. So I started pulling back, cutting ties, trying to get out without making too many enemies. It worked, mostly, until it didn't. Who was that man? Viktor Sokolov. He runs one of the operations I used to work with. He thinks I owe him loyalty, or money, probably both. And do you? I paid what I owed, honored my commitments, but he wants more. He always wants more. What happens if you don't give it to him? Declan didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was flat. He makes an example of me, and anyone connected to me. Elena's stomach dropped. You mean me? I won't let that happen. You can't control what he does. No, but I can make sure you're not here when he tries. She stood abruptly. I'm not leaving. Elena, I'm not running again. I'm done running. This isn't about running. This is about staying alive. And what about you? You think he's going to just let you walk away if I'm gone? Declan looked at her for a long moment. Probably not. Then we figure it out together. There's no together here. This is my mess, not yours. It became mine the second you brought me into your house. She sat back down, closer this time. So stop trying to protect me and start telling me the truth. All of it. What does he want? Declan studied her face, then sighed. Money, access, a piece of something I'm trying to sell. He thinks if he pushes hard enough, I'll fold. Will you? No. Why not? Because I'm done being the person who folds. Elena nodded slowly. Okay, then what's the plan? I don't have one yet? Then we make one. Elena, I'm not arguing about this. You want me to stay? Fine. But you don't get to keep me in the dark and then expect me to just go along with whatever you decide. For the first time since she'd met him, Declan almost smiled. You're stubborn. You're just noticing? No, but it's more obvious when you're arguing with me. Get used to it. They spent the next hour talking through options. None of them were good. Declan could pay Viktor off, but that would only buy time. He could go to the authorities, but that meant exposing himself and everyone he'd ever worked with. He could fight back, but that risked everything, including Elena. There's another option, Elena said finally. What? You give him what he thinks he wants, but you do it in a way that boxes him in. Make the deal public, legal, something he can't back out of without exposing himself. Declan frowned. That's risky. Everything's risky, but at least this way you control the narrative. He considered it. It might work, if I can get him to agree. He'll agree if you make it worth his while. And if he doesn't? Elena met his eyes. Then we deal with that when it happens. Declan stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. You know this isn't your fight. I know, but I'm making it mine anyway. Why? Because you gave me a roof when I had nothing, and because... She stopped, unsure how to finish. Because you're trying. That has to count for something. Something shifted in Declan's expression. Not quite gratitude, not quite relief, but something close. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet. We still have to survive the next 48 hours. Fair point. They cleaned up the broken glass together, then boarded up the window with plywood Declan found in the basement. By the time they finished, it was almost dawn. Elena made coffee while Declan stood at the kitchen window, staring out at the gray light. You should get some sleep, he said. So should you. I don't sleep much anyway. I noticed. He turned to look at her. Elena? Yeah? If this goes wrong, if Viktor doesn't take the deal, I need you to promise me something. What? That you'll leave. No questions, no arguments, just go. Elena set down her coffee cup. I already told you I'm not running. And I'm telling you that if it comes to that, you don't have a choice. I'm not letting you get hurt because of my mistakes. You don't get to decide that. Yes, I do. It's my house, my mess, my rules. Your rules don't mean anything if I don't follow them. Declan's expression hardened. Elena, no, you don't get to do this. You don't get to pull me in and then push me out when things get dangerous. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? I don't know, but not like that. They stood there, locked in a silent standoff. Outside, the city was waking up. Car engines, distant sirens, the hum of life moving forward. Finally, Declan exhaled. You're impossible. You say that like it's a bad thing. It is when you're trying to keep someone alive. Then stop trying so hard and let me make my own choices. He didn't respond, just picked up his coffee and walked out of the room. Elena listened to his footsteps on the stairs, then leaned against the counter and closed her eyes. She'd meant what she said. She wasn't running, not this time. But sitting there in the quiet kitchen, with dawn breaking outside and danger closing in, she couldn't help but wonder if staying was the bravest thing she'd ever done or the stupidest. Probably both. The 48 hours crawled by like weeks. Declan made calls, set up meetings, worked angles Elena didn't fully understand. She stayed close to the house, venturing out only to the corner store for supplies. Every time the door opened, every time a car slowed on the street, her pulse spiked. But nothing happened. No more broken windows. No more midnight visitors. Just waiting. On the second night, Elena found Declan in his office on the third floor. She'd never been up there before. It felt like crossing an invisible line. But the door was open and the light was on, so she climbed the stairs and knocked on the doorframe. You busy? She asked. Declan looked up from a stack of papers. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes darker than usual. Not really, just going over numbers. Can I come in? Yeah. The office was sparse like the rest of the house. A desk, a chair, filing cabinets along one wall. But there was a shelf of books that looked actually read, spines cracked and pages worn, and a framed photo on the desk that Elena couldn't quite see from the doorway. She stepped closer. The photo was old, faded at the edges. Two boys, maybe 12 and 14, standing in front of a brick building with their arms around each other's shoulders. The older one was scowling at the camera. The younger one was grinning. That's Liam, she said quietly. Yeah. How old were you? 50. He was 13. Elena picked up the frame, studying the faces. Liam looked so young, so unguarded. Nothing like the careful, quiet man she'd married. He never told me much about his childhood. Not much to tell. Our old man was mean. Our mother checked out early. We raised ourselves, mostly. Is that why you two were so different? Declan leaned back in his chair. What do you mean? He got out. You stayed. Why? Because someone had to. And I was better at it than he was. Better at what? The violence? Better at not caring. He paused. Liam cared too much. About people, about right and wrong. It made him weak in that world. So I made sure he didn't have to be strong. I handled the ugly parts, protected him, until I couldn't anymore. Elena set the frame back down. You think he blamed you? I know he did. He told me as much right before he left. Said I was throwing my life away. That I didn't have to be what our father was. Declan's voice was flat, but his hands were clenched on the armrests. I told him to mind his own business. That was the last real conversation we had. How long before he died? 3 years. And you never tried to fix it? No, I was too proud. And then he was gone and there was nothing left to fix. Elena pulled out the other chair and sat. I'm sorry. For what? That you didn't get to make it right with him. Declan looked at her, something unreadable in his expression. You don't have to be sorry for me. I'm not. I'm just... She stopped, searching for the right words. I get it. The regret. The wishing you could go back and do things differently. Yeah? Yeah, I said things to Liam too, right before he died. Stupid things. We had a fight about money, about bills, about nothing that mattered. And the last thing I said to him was that I was tired of struggling, that I wished he'd find a real job instead of scraping by with freelance work. Her voice cracked. He left that morning, and I didn't even kiss him goodbye. Elena, I spent years thinking that was my fault, that if I'd just been more supportive, more patient, maybe he wouldn't have been where he was that day. Maybe he would have stayed home, maybe... She wiped at her eyes angrily. But it doesn't matter. He's still gone, and I can't take back what I said. Declan was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, walked around the desk, and crouched in front of her chair so they were eye level. Listen to me, he said quietly. What happened to Liam wasn't your fault. It wasn't because of a fight or something you said. It was because I made a choice that got him killed. You hear me? That's on me, not you. But if I'd been kinder, it wouldn't have changed anything. The people who wanted to hurt me would have found a way. You being kind or unkind didn't factor into it. Elena looked at him through blurred vision. How do you know that? Because I've spent 6 years going over every angle, every possibility, every what if. And the only thing that would have changed the outcome was me making a different choice. That's it. That's the only variable that mattered. She wanted to believe him, wanted to let go of the guilt she'd been carrying, but it had become such a part of her that releasing it felt like losing something essential. I don't know how to stop blaming myself, she whispered. Neither do I. But maybe we start by being honest about whose fault it actually was. They stayed like that for a while. Declan crouched in front of her, Elena trying to breathe through the weight in her chest. Finally, he stood and held out a hand. Come on, you need to eat something. I'm not hungry. You're always not hungry. Eat anyway. She took his hand and let him pull her up. His grip was warm, solid. She held on a second longer than necessary before letting go. Downstairs, Declan made pasta. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti with butter and garlic. And they ate in the kitchen while rain started up again outside. Elena picked at her food, but she ate more than she had in days. Declan didn't comment, just refilled her water glass when it was empty and didn't push when she finally set down her fork. What's the plan tomorrow? She asked. I'm meeting Victor. Neutral location. Public. Where? A restaurant in Midtown. He suggested it. You trust him? No, but I trust that he won't try anything in front of witnesses. And if he doesn't take the deal? Declan's expression darkened. Then I have a backup plan. Which is? Something I'd rather not do. Declan, he sighed. I go to the feds, give them everything I have on Victor and his operation. It'll burn bridges I can't rebuild, but it'll keep him off my back. And put you in prison. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on what kind of deal they offer. Elena's stomach twisted. You can't do that. I can if it keeps you safe. Stop saying that like I'm the only thing that matters here. What about you? What happens to you? I don't matter. Yes, you do. Declan looked at her, something raw in his eyes. Why? The question hung between them. Elena didn't have a good answer, or maybe she did, but she wasn't ready to say it out loud. Because somewhere in the past few weeks, between the chess games and the quiet dinners and the shared silences, something had shifted. She didn't just see him as the man who'd ruined her life anymore. She saw him as someone who was trying, however clumsily, to be better than he'd been. And that mattered. It shouldn't, but it did. Because you're not the monster you think you are, she said finally. And I don't want to see you throw your life away because you think you deserve it. I do deserve it. Maybe. But that doesn't mean you have to accept it. They stared at each other across the kitchen table. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Declan opened his mouth like he was going to say something, then closed it again. Finally, he just nodded. I'll try, he said quietly. That's all I'm asking. The next morning, Declan left early. He didn't tell Elena where he was going, but she knew. The meeting. Victor. The moment everything either got better or fell apart. She paced the house for an hour after he left, too wired to sit still. Then she went out to the garden. It was muddy and cold, but she didn't care. She grabbed a trowel from the shed and started digging, clearing out the last of the dead roots from the flower beds. Her hands got dirty, her jeans soaked through at the knees, but the physical work helped, gave her something to focus on besides the knot of dread in her stomach. She was halfway through the second bed when she heard footsteps behind her. "You're trespassing!" Elena spun around. A woman stood at the edge of the garden, maybe mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She was dressed like she'd just stepped out of a boardroom, tailored coat, heels that had no business being in a garden. Her expression was cool, appraising. "Who are you?" Elena asked, standing slowly. "I could ask you the same thing, but I already know. You're Elena Whitmore." The woman tilted her head. "Liam's widow." Elena's pulse kicked up. "How do you know that?" "Because I make it my business to know who Declan Mercer is keeping in his house." She stepped closer, heels sinking slightly into the mud. "My name is Irina Volkov. Victor is my brother." The bottom dropped out of Elena's stomach. "What do you want?" "To talk. Just talk." Irina glanced around the garden. "Declan's not here, is he? He'll be back soon." "No, he won't. He's with Victor right now, which gives us time." Elena's hands tightened on the trowel. "I don't have anything to say to you." "That's fine. You can listen." Irina's smile didn't reach her eyes. "My brother is a difficult man, stubborn, greedy, but he's also pragmatic. He doesn't want a war with Declan. He just wants what's owed. Declan doesn't owe him anything. That's not how Victor sees it, and unfortunately, what Victor sees is what matters." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I think you have influence, more than you realize." Irina took another step closer. "Declan's changed since you've been here. He's distracted, softer. Victor noticed. So did I. I don't have any influence over him." "Don't you?" Irina's gaze was sharp. "You're living in his house, eating at his table. He's protecting you when he should be protecting his own interests. That's not the Declan Mercer I know." Elena's heart was pounding. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to convince him to take Victor's deal. Whatever my brother offers today, tell Declan to accept it. No conditions. No negotiations. Just yes." "And if I don't?" Irina's expression went cold. "Then Victor stops being pragmatic, and people get hurt, starting with you. You're threatening me. I'm giving you a choice. Convince Declan to cooperate, and everyone walks away happy. Refuse, and—" She shrugged. "Well, let's just say my brother doesn't leave loose ends." Elena forced herself to stay calm. "I'm not going to help you." "That's disappointing. You can threaten me all you want. I'm not going to tell Declan what to do." Irina studied her for a long moment, then smiled. "You care about him. Actually care. How unexpected." "Get out of my garden." "It's not your garden, it's his. You're just a guest, a temporary one." "Get out!" Irina held up her hands in mock surrender. "Fine, I'll go. But think about what I said. You have until tonight to convince him. After that, Victor stops waiting." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Elena? Don't tell Declan about this conversation. He'll do something stupid, and we'll all suffer for it." She walked away, heels clicking on the stone path. Elena watched until she disappeared around the side of the house, then sank onto the bench, her legs suddenly shaky. This was bad, worse than bad. If Victor's sister was making house calls, that meant they were serious. And if they were willing to threaten her directly, that meant they thought she mattered to Declan, which meant they'd use her to get what they wanted. She needed to tell him, needed to warn him, but Irina's words echoed in her head. "Don't tell Declan. He'll do something stupid." Elena pressed her hands to her face. What the hell was she supposed to do? Declan came back just after 4. Elena was in the kitchen, trying to look normal, trying not to let panic show on her face. He took one look at her and frowned. "What happened?" "Nothing." "Elena." "I'm fine." "How did the meeting go?" He didn't answer right away, just set his keys on the counter and poured himself a glass of water. "Victor wants 50% of everything I'm selling, plus a cut of future earnings for the next 5 years. That's insane. Yeah, I told him no. Elena's chest tightened. What did he say? He gave me 24 hours to reconsider. Said if I don't accept by tomorrow night, he's done being reasonable. Declan. I'm not giving him anything. I'm going to the feds tomorrow morning. No, you can't. There's no other option. Yes, there is. You give him something, not everything he wants, but enough to make him back off. Declan shook his head. That's not how this works. I give him an inch, he'll take a mile. And then I'm back where I started, tied to people I can't get away from. Better tied than dead. I'm not going to die. You don't know that. He looked at her, really looked, and his expression softened slightly. What's going on? You're scared. More than usual. Elena wanted to tell him, wanted to blurt out everything Irina had said, but the threat hung over her like a blade. Tell Declan, and he'd go after Victor, and then people would get hurt. I just don't want you to do something you can't come back from, she said carefully. Going to the feds isn't a death sentence. It's a way out. It's also a betrayal of everyone you ever worked with. You think they're going to forgive that? I don't care if they forgive it. You should, because they'll come for you. And they won't stop until... She stopped, breathing hard. I can't lose you too. The words hung in the air between them. Declan's eyes widened slightly. Elena? Forget I said that. No, say it again. I can't. Why not? Because it's stupid. Because you're the reason Liam's dead and I should hate you and I... Her voice broke. I don't know what I feel, but I know I don't want you to die. Is that enough? Declan crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. Elena stiffened, then sagged against him, letting herself be held for the first time in years. He smelled like rain and something sharp and clean. His heartbeat was steady under her ear. I'm not going to die, he said quietly. I promise. You can't promise that. Watch me. She pulled back just enough to look at him. What are you going to do? I'm going to make Victor an offer he actually might take. Not 50%, not even close, but enough to save face, enough to make him think he won. And if he says no, then I go to plan B. The feds. Yeah. Elena's throat tightened. She thought of Irina's threat. 24 hours. What if there's another way? There isn't. What if you gave him what he wanted, just this once? Declan pulled back, frowning. What? I'm just saying maybe it's not worth fighting. Maybe you should just... No. His voice was hard. I'm not caving to him. I've spent my whole life caving to people like Victor. I'm done. But where's this coming from? You were just telling me not to go to the feds, and now you're saying I should give Victor everything? That doesn't make sense. Elena's heart was pounding. I'm just trying to keep you alive. By making me a coward? By making me the same person I've been trying to stop being? He shook his head. No. I'd rather die standing up than live on my knees. That's easy to say when you're not the one who has to watch it happen. Then don't watch. Leave. Go somewhere safe. I'm not leaving. Then stop trying to talk me into surrender. They stared at each other, both breathing hard. Elena wanted to scream. Wanted to tell him about Irina, about the threat, about the impossible choice she was being forced to make. But the words stuck in her throat. I need some air, she said finally. Elena. She walked out before he could finish. Elena spent the next hour walking aimlessly through the neighborhood, trying to think. Every option felt wrong. Tell Declan about Irina, and he'd escalate things. Don't tell him, and she'd be complicit in whatever happened next. Convince him to take Victor's deal, and he'd hate himself, and probably her. Let him go to the feds, and he'd end up in prison or worse. There was no good answer, just bad choices and worse ones. By the time she got back to the house, it was dark. Declan was in the living room, staring at the chessboard like it held answers. He looked up when she came in. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For snapping at you. You're just trying to help. Elena sat in the chair across from him. I'm not trying to help. I'm trying not to watch you get killed. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've got a death wish. I don't, but I'm also not going to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, waiting for Victor or someone like him to decide I'm a problem. He leaned forward. I'm done being afraid, Elena. I'm done letting other people dictate my life. Even if it kills you? Even then. She closed her eyes. You're impossible. So you keep telling me. They sat in silence for a while. Then Elena spoke, quiet but firm. If you're going to do this, if you're really going to stand up to Victor, then I need you to promise me something. What? That you won't do it alone, that you'll let me help. Elena, I mean it. You don't get to shut me out and then expect me to just sit here and wait. If this is happening, we do it together. Declan looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, together. Good. She didn't tell him about Irina, didn't tell him about the threat or the 24-hour deadline. She told herself it was because she didn't want him to do something reckless. But deep down, she knew the real reason. She was afraid. Afraid of what Victor might do. Afraid of losing the fragile stability she'd found in this house. Afraid that if she told the truth, everything would fall apart. So she kept quiet and hoped it wouldn't cost them both everything. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios in her head. Every one of them ended badly. Declan standing up to Victor and getting killed for it. Declan going to the feds and spending the next decade in prison. Declan giving in and hating himself for the rest of his life. And somewhere in all of it, Irina's threat hung over her like a noose. 24 hours, and then Victor stops being patient. Around 3 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and went downstairs. The house was dark except for a light coming from Declan's office. She climbed the stairs quietly and found him at his desk, surrounded by papers and an empty whiskey glass. "Can't sleep either?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up, unsurprised. "No." "What are you working on?" "Trying to find leverage. Something that makes Victor back down without me having to hand over everything." Elena stepped into the room. And I've got nothing. He's careful, keeps his hands clean. Everything dirty is done through intermediaries. Declan rubbed his face. "I've been at this for hours, and I'm no closer than when I started." She moved closer to the desk, looking at the papers spread across it. Financial records, names she didn't recognize, dates and locations that meant nothing to her. "What if you're looking at this wrong?" "What do you mean?" "You're trying to find dirt on Victor. But what if the leverage isn't on him? What if it's on someone he cares about?" Declan frowned. He doesn't care about anyone. Everyone cares about someone. What about family, associates, people whose loyalty he needs? His sister, maybe, Irina. She runs the legitimate side of his operations, real estate, investments, but she's clean as far as I know. Elena's stomach dropped. "Irina. You know that name?" She hesitated. This was the moment. She could tell him about the visit, about the threat. But if she did, he'd go after Victor immediately, and Irina had been clear about what would happen then. Still, keeping it from him felt like a betrayal of a different kind. "Elena?" Declan's voice was sharper now. "How do you know that name?" "She came to the house yesterday, while you were gone." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Declan stood slowly, his expression going hard. "What?" "She said she wanted to talk. She knew who I was, knew I was staying here." "What did she say to you?" Elena forced herself to meet his eyes. "She told me to convince you to take Victor's deal, said if I didn't, people would get hurt. Starting with me." Declan's jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. "And you didn't think to tell me this?" "She said you'd do something stupid if I told you. So you just, what? Decided to handle it yourself? To keep quiet while someone threatened you in my house?" I didn't know what to do. I still don't. You tell me. That's what you do. You don't keep something like that to yourself." Elena's temper flared. "Oh, like you've been so forthcoming. You've been keeping me in the dark about half of what's going on. Don't act like I'm the only one holding back." "That's different." "How? How is it different?" "Because I'm trying to protect you. You're just—" He stopped, exhaled hard. "You're just scared." "Of course I'm scared." "She threatened to kill me, Declan. What did you expect?" "I expected you to trust me enough to tell me." "I do trust you, but trusting you doesn't mean I want to watch you get yourself killed trying to protect me." They stared at each other across the desk. The silence stretched until it felt suffocating. Finally, Declan spoke, his voice low and controlled. When did she say this had to happen by, Jose? Tonight. She gave you until tonight to accept Victor's deal. Which means we've got... He checked his watch. About 15 hours. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure Victor understands that threatening you was a mistake. Declan, no, that's exactly what she said you'd do. I don't care what she said. No one threatens you and walks away thinking it's okay. Elena moved around the desk, standing directly in front of him. Listen to me. If you go after them now, they'll retaliate, and you'll end up dead. Is that what you want? What I want is for them to leave you alone. Then be smart about it. Don't just charge in. I'm not charging in. I'm making a point. By doing what? He didn't answer, just looked at her with an expression that made her stomach twist. Declan, what are you planning? Nothing you need to worry about. Stop doing that. Stop shutting me out. I'm not... He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. I'm trying to keep you safe. By keeping secrets? By making decisions without me? That's not keeping me safe. That's treating me like I'm fragile. You're not fragile, but you are in danger because of me, and I need to fix that. We need to fix it together, remember? Declan looked at her for a long moment, then his shoulders sagged slightly. You're right. I'm sorry. When I think about someone hurting you, I can't think straight. The admission caught Elena off guard. She'd known he felt guilty about her situation, but this was different. This was personal. Why does it matter so much to you? What happens to me? Because you're... He stopped, searching for words. Because you're the first person in a long time who's looked at me and seen something other than what I've done. You're angry at me, you don't trust me, but you still see me as a person, not just a thing, a problem, and I can't lose that. Elena's throat tightened. You won't. You don't know that. Neither do you. They stood there, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him. She should step back, put distance between them. But she didn't. Instead, she reached out and took his hand. We'll figure this out, she said quietly. But we have to do it together. No more secrets. No more going off on your own. Declan's fingers tightened around hers. Okay. Together. Promise me. I promise. She nodded, then pulled her hand away before the moment could become something more complicated than it already was. So what's the actual plan? Not the revenge plan, the smart one. Declan took a breath, visibly pulling himself back into problem-solving mode. We need leverage, real leverage. If Arena's running the legitimate operations, that's where we look. Real estate deals, financial transactions, anything that might not hold up under scrutiny. You think she's hiding something illegal? Everyone in Victor's orbit is hiding something. It's just a matter of finding it. He turned back to his computer, pulling up a new screen. I've got access to some databases. Wasn't planning to use them, but what kind of databases? The kind that show property records, corporate filings, financial transactions, legal stuff, but not always public. Elena leaned over his shoulder, watching as he typed. How do you have access to this? Old contacts. People who owe me favors. People in your old life. Yeah. She should probably be bothered by that, by the fact that he still had connections to a world he claimed to be leaving. But right now, she was just grateful he had options. What are we looking for? Anything unusual? Properties bought through shell companies, money moving through offshore accounts, deals that don't quite add up. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Arena's smart, but no one's perfect. She'll have made a mistake somewhere. They worked in silence for the next hour, Declan pulling up records while Elena cross-referenced names and dates. It was tedious, eye-straining work, but slowly a pattern started to emerge. Properties purchased under different company names, but all tied back to the same offshore account. Money flowing in circles, always ending up in the same place. There, Elena said, pointing at the screen. That building in Queens. It was purchased 6 months ago for half its market value. Declan zoomed in on the details. Seller was a company called Meridian Holdings. And the buyer? Volkov Enterprises. That's Irina's company. So she bought a building from herself? Looks like it. Probably to hide the real transaction. Meridian Holdings bought it for market value a year ago, then sold it to Volkov at a loss, which means money laundering, Elena finished. She's using the properties to clean dirty money. Declan sat back, a grim smile on his face. There it is. That's the leverage. What do we do with it? We make sure Victor knows we have it, and that if he comes after us, we send everything to the feds. Irina goes down, Victor loses his legitimate cover, and everyone suffers. Will that actually stop him? It better, because it's the best option we've got. Elena's chest felt tight. And if it doesn't work? Then we move to plan B. The feds. Yeah. She nodded slowly. It wasn't a perfect plan. It wasn't even a good plan, but it was something. Okay, when do we make the move? Now, before Victor's deadline hits. Declan pulled out his phone. I'm calling him. Wait, just give me a second. Elena grabbed his wrist. What if this makes things worse? It won't. You don't know that. No, but I know doing nothing definitely makes things worse. He covered her hand with his. Trust me, please. Elena looked at him, at the determination in his eyes, the set of his jaw, the way he was looking at her like her opinion actually mattered, and made a choice. Okay, make the call. Declan dialed. It rang 3 times before Victor picked up. Mercer, I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. We need to talk. I believe we said everything that needed saying yesterday. Yeah, well, some new information came to light. Information I think you'll find interesting. There was a pause. What kind of information? The kind involving your sister and some questionable real estate deals. The kind that would be very interesting to certain federal agencies. The silence on the other end was sharp, dangerous. When Victor spoke again, his voice had lost its casual tone. You're bluffing. Am I? Pull up the records for Meridian Holdings, then tell me I'm bluffing. Another pause. Elena could hear typing in the background. Then Victor's voice, colder now. What do you want? I want you to back off. Completely. No more threats. No more visits from your sister. You leave me alone. I leave your operation alone. And if I refuse, then everything I have goes to the FBI tomorrow morning. They'll freeze Irina's assets, investigate every transaction, and probably find enough to put her away for a decade. Maybe more. Declan's voice was steady, controlled. Your choice, Victor. Walk away clean, or watch your whole empire collapse. The silence stretched. Elena held her breath. You've got stones, Mercer. I'll give you that. Victor's laugh was humorless. Fine, you want out? You're out. But cross me again, and there won't be enough of you left to identify. Understood. Same goes for you. Stay away from me and mine. Done. The line went dead. Declan set down the phone and exhaled slowly. Is it over? Elena asked. I think so, for now. Just like that? Just like that. Victor's pragmatic. He knows when to cut his losses. Elena sank into the chair, suddenly exhausted. I can't believe that actually worked. Neither can I, honestly. What if he changes his mind? He won't. Not as long as we hold the evidence. And even if he did, we've got enough to bury him and his sister. He knows that. She looked at him. You realize we just committed to blackmailing a crime lord for the rest of our lives. Yeah, not my proudest moment, but it keeps us breathing. Is this what getting out looks like? Constant threats and leverage and waiting for the other shoe to drop? Declan's expression softened. No, this is what transition looks like. It's messy and it's not clean, but it's a step. Eventually the threats stop. Eventually people move on. It just takes time. How much time? I don't know, but I'm willing to wait as long as it takes. Elena nodded slowly. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that this nightmare had an endpoint, that they could actually build something stable out of all this chaos. But hope felt dangerous, like inviting disappointment. What happens now, she asked. Now we wait. Make sure Victor holds up his end, and we keep living. In this house. In this house. Together. Declan met her eyes. If you want to. Did she want to? A month ago, the answer would have been an immediate no. But now, sitting in his office at 4 in the morning after blackmailing a mobster together, the answer wasn't as clear. Being here had given her something she hadn't had in years: stability, safety, a reason to get up in the morning. And Declan, for all his flaws and the weight of what he'd done, had given her space to heal, had let her be angry, be difficult, be human. I want to, she said quietly. For now. For now is good enough. They sat in silence as the first light of dawn started creeping through the windows. Somewhere in the city, people were waking up, starting their days, living normal lives with normal problems. Elena wasn't sure she'd ever have that again, but maybe she didn't need to. Maybe this, messy and complicated and still shadowed by the past, was enough. You should get some sleep, Declan said eventually. So should you. I will. In a bit. Elena stood, then hesitated. Thank you for listening, for not just charging in. Thank you for telling me, even if it took you too long. I'm still learning how to trust people. So am I. She nodded and left, closing the door quietly behind her. Back in her room, she climbed into bed, and for the first time in days, sleep came easy. When she woke, it was past noon. The house was quiet. Elena got dressed and went downstairs to find a note on the kitchen counter. Went to handle some business, back by dinner. There's food in the fridge. She made herself lunch, actual lunch, not just coffee and crackers, and ate standing at the window. The garden was starting to look better. Not good, but better. She could see the shape of what it might become with more work, more time. Time. That's what they had now, bought with blackmail and threats, but time nonetheless. Elena spent the afternoon in the garden, finishing the work she'd started before Irina's visit. The physical labor felt good, grounding. Every weed pulled, every dead branch cleared felt like progress, like she was building something instead of just surviving. Declan came home around 6, carrying groceries. You've been busy, he said, looking at the garden. Needed something to do. It looks good. It'll look better in spring, if I'm still here. He glanced at her. You planning on leaving? I don't know. Are you planning on kicking me out? No. Then I guess we'll see. They made dinner together, chicken, roasted vegetables. Nothing fancy, but better than anything Elena had cooked in months. They ate at the kitchen table, talking about nothing important. The weather. A book Declan was reading. Whether the Knicks had any chance this season. Normal conversation. Easy. It wasn't until after dinner, when they were cleaning up, that Declan spoke about what had been hanging between them all day. I need to tell you something, he said, drying a plate. Elena's stomach tightened. What? After Liam died, I kept a journal. Wrote down everything that happened, every choice I made, every consequence. I told myself it was for, I don't know, accountability maybe, or penance. He set down the plate. It's all in there. The deal with the rival family. My decision not to back down. What happened to Liam. All of it. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the whole truth, not just what I've told you in pieces. And because... He paused. Because I think reading it might help you understand, or at least help you decide if staying here is something you actually want. Where is it? In my office, top drawer of the desk. He met her eyes. You can read it whenever you want, or never. Your choice. Elena's hand stilled in the sink. You're giving me permission to read your private journal. I'm giving you the truth. What you do with it is up to you. She didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to run upstairs right now and read every word. Part of her never wanted to see it, because reading it would make everything real in a way it hadn't been yet, would force her to confront exactly what Declan had done, what he'd chosen, what it had cost. I'll think about it, she said finally. Okay. They finished the dishes in silence. Elena went up to her room, but she couldn't settle. The journal sat in that office like a weight, pulling at her. She tried to read, tried to sleep, but her mind kept circling back to it. Around midnight, she gave up, went down the hall to Declan's office. The door was open, the room dark. She flicked on the light and opened the top drawer. The journal was leather-bound, worn at the edges. She pulled it out and sat in Declan's chair, the weight of it heavy in her hands. This was it. The truth. Not filtered through guilt or regret or time, just what had happened in his own words. Elena opened to the first page and started reading. The entries were clinical at first. Dates, names, transactions. Business as usual. But as she went deeper, the tone changed, became more personal, more raw. She found the entry about the rival family's offer, Declan's reasoning for refusing, his belief that showing weakness would destroy everything he'd built. Then came the threats, the escalation, warnings that people close to him were at risk. Liam's name appeared for the first time, along with Declan's note that he'd told his brother to stay away until things cooled down, that Liam had refused, had said he wasn't going to hide while Declan fought his battles. Elena's hands shook as she turned the page. The next entry was dated 2 days before Liam died. It was short, just 3 lines. Liam called again, wants me to walk away, told him I can't. He said I'm choosing pride over family. Maybe he's right. Then the entry from the day Liam died. They killed him. Shot him outside his apartment at 7:15 this morning. I got the call at 7:43. By 8 o'clock, I knew it was my fault. By 8:30, I decided it didn't matter whose fault it was. The damage was done. All I could do was make sure it didn't happen to anyone else. So I told everyone to cut contact with his widow, told them she was off limits, untouchable. I thought I was protecting her. Turns out I was just protecting myself from having to face what I'd done. The words blurred. Elena wiped her eyes, kept reading. The entries after that were shorter, more fragmented. Guilt mixed with justification, mixed with rage at the people who'd killed Liam. But underneath it all was a through line of self-recrimination. Declan knew what he'd done, knew he'd chosen wrong, and he'd spent 6 years punishing himself for it. The last entry was dated a month ago, right before he'd found her on that corner. Saw someone today who reminded me of Liam. Same walk, same way of holding himself. It gutted me, made me realize I've spent 6 years running from what I did, hiding from it, building walls so high I don't have to see over them. But the walls don't help. They just make the space inside smaller. I don't know how to fix what I broke. Don't know if it's even possible. But I'm tired of running, tired of pretending it doesn't matter. Something has to change. I just don't know what. Elena closed the journal and sat in the dark office, crying quietly. Not for herself, for Declan, for Liam, for all the broken pieces neither of them could put back together. She didn't know how long she sat there before she heard footsteps in the hall. Declan appeared in the doorway, silhouetted by the hallway light. "You read it," he said quietly. "Yeah. All of it?" "All of it." He stepped into the room but didn't turn on the light, just stood there, waiting. "I'm sorry," Elena said. "I'm sorry you've been carrying this alone. You don't have to—" "Yes, I do, because I've spent 6 years blaming you for everything, and I was right to. But I didn't know you were blaming yourself just as much. Maybe more. That doesn't make it okay." "No, but it makes it human." She stood, crossing to where he stood. "You made a terrible choice. You know that. You've known it for years, and nothing you do will bring Liam back. But torturing yourself forever doesn't help anyone either." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying—" She stopped, searching for the right words. "I'm saying I forgive you, not because you deserve it. Not because it fixes anything, but because holding on to this anger is killing both of us, and I'm tired of being angry." Declan's breath hitched. "Elena, I'm not saying we're okay. I'm not saying I trust you completely or that we're going to ride off into the sunset together, but I'm saying I see you trying, and that matters." He reached for her hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers laced with hers, warm and solid. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Don't thank me yet. I might change my mind tomorrow. I'll take that risk." They stood there in the dark, hands clasped, the weight of the past finally shifting into something they could both carry. It wasn't forgiveness in the clean movie sense. It was messy and complicated and still carried scars. But it was real, and for now, that was enough. The weeks that followed felt like learning to breathe again after being underwater too long. Elena and Declan didn't suddenly become easy with each other, Forgiveness wasn't a switch that got flipped, but something fundamental had shifted. They talked more, argued less, started building something that felt less like survival and more like actual living. Winter began its slow retreat. The garden responded first, tiny green shoots pushing through the cold soil. Elena spent hours out there, coaxing life back into the beds, planning what she'd plant when the ground fully thawed. Declan would watch from the kitchen window sometimes, coffee in hand, not saying anything but present in a way that felt less like surveillance and more like companionship. One morning in early March, Elena came downstairs to find Declan at the table with a newspaper and an envelope. "Coffee's fresh," he said without looking up. "Thanks." She poured herself a cup and sat across from him. "What's in the envelope?" "Job posting. Thought you might be interested." Elena set down her mug. "What kind of job?" "Independent bookstore in Park Slope. They're hiring, sales associate, events coordinator, that kind of thing." He slid the envelope across the table. "Owner's name is Margaret Chen. She's good people. I called her yesterday, told her I knew someone who might be a fit." "You called about a job for me?" "Yeah." "Without asking me first?" Declan finally looked up. "I didn't commit you to anything, just mentioned you existed. The rest is up to you." Elena picked up the envelope but didn't open it. "Why?" "Because you've been here 3 months and you haven't left the neighborhood once except to get groceries. Because you're smart and you like books and you need something that's yours, not mine, yours. And you think working in a bookstore is going to give me that? I think it's a start. Better than sitting in this house pretending you don't want more." She wanted to argue, but he wasn't wrong. She'd been treading water, telling herself she was healing when really she was just hiding. The thought of going back into the world, of being around people, of having responsibilities and expectations, it terrified her. But it also felt necessary, like the next step she'd been avoiding. "What if I'm not ready?" she asked quietly. "Then you're not ready, but you won't know until you try." Elena opened the envelope. Inside was a printout of the job listing and a handwritten note. "Elena, Declan speaks highly of you. Would love to chat if you're interested. Come by any time. Margaret." "She seems nice," Elena said. "She is. Tough but fair. Won't coddle you, but won't throw you to the wolves either." "You really think I can do this?" Declan's expression softened. "I think you can do anything you decide to do. You just have to decide." Elena folded the note carefully and put it back in the envelope. "I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking." She went to the bookstore 3 days later, alone. It was a small place tucked between a coffee shop and a dry cleaner, the kind of store that looked like it had been there forever. The window display featured a mix of new releases and classics, arranged with care, but not pretension. A bell jingled when Elena pushed open the door. Inside smelled like paper and old wood. Shelves climbed to the ceiling, packed tight but organized. A woman in her 60s stood behind the counter, gray hair pulled back in a loose bun, reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked up when Elena entered. "Can I help you find something?" "I'm Elena. I'm here about the job." The woman's face brightened. "Oh, good. I was hoping you'd come. I'm Margaret." She came around the counter and shook Elena's hand. Her grip was firm, no nonsense. "Declan said you were smart. Are you?" Elena blinked. I think so." "Don't think. No. Are you smart?" "Yes." "Good. Do you like books?" "Very much." "Have you worked retail before?" "Not in years, but I used to work at a library. Before—" She stopped. Before everything fell apart. Before Liam died. Before she ended up on a sidewalk selling her wedding ring. Margaret studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Before doesn't matter. What matters is now. Can you show up on time, work hard, and not steal from me?" "Yes." "Can you talk to customers without making them feel stupid for not knowing who Virginia Woolf is?" "I can try. Trying's good enough. When can you start?" Elena's head spun. "That's it? You're hiring me?" "Unless you're going to give me a reason not to." "Don't you want to ask me questions? Check references?" "Declan vouched for you. That's reference enough. And I'm a good judge of character. You want the job or not?" "Did she?" Elena looked around the store. at the shelves packed with stories, at the comfortable chairs in the corner where people could sit and read, at the community board covered in flyers for local events. It felt safe, manageable, like something she could actually do without falling apart. "Yes," she said. "I want the job." "Good. Monday, 9 o'clock. Don't be late." Elena left the store feeling lighter than she had in months. She walked home, really walked, taking her time, noticing the neighborhood for the first time. The brownstones with their neat stoops. The bodega on the corner where the owner always nodded hello. The park where kids played even in the cold. This place had become familiar without her realizing it, had become something close to home. Declan was in the garden when she got back, trimming the hedges that bordered the property. He looked up when she came through the gate. "How'd it go?" "I start Monday." A smile cracked his usually stoic expression. "Yeah?" "Yeah. She hired me on the spot. Didn't even ask for a resume. Told you she was good people." Elena sat on the bench watching him work. "Thank you for setting that up. You don't have to thank me." "I know, but I'm going to anyway." They fell into a comfortable silence. Declan kept trimming, and Elena kept watching, and the afternoon sun filtered through the bare branches overhead. It felt ordinary, normal, like something people did who weren't constantly waiting for the next disaster. "Declan?" "Yeah?" "What happens when I don't need to be here anymore? When I have a job and money and can afford my own place?" He paused mid-cut. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know. That's why I'm asking." He set down the shears and turned to face her. "You can leave whenever you want. I told you that from the beginning, but—" He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "I'd like it if you stayed, not because you need to, because you want to. And if I don't know what I want yet, then you stay until you figure it out, or you leave and come back, or you leave and don't come back. Whatever you need, Elena. I'm not going to trap you here." She nodded slowly. "Okay. Okay? I'll stay. For now. Until I know what comes next." "For now" works. The job at the bookstore turned out to be exactly what Elena needed. Margaret was tough, but kind, quick to correct mistakes, but just as quick to praise when something was done well. The work was simple: shelving books, helping customers, running the register, but it gave Elena structure, a reason to get up in the morning, a place to be that wasn't Declan's house. She was good at it too. Customers seemed to like her, and she found she actually enjoyed talking to people about books, making recommendations, helping someone find exactly what they were looking for. It felt useful, purposeful. One afternoon, about 2 weeks into the job, a woman came in looking for a book about grief. She was young, maybe late 20s, with red-rimmed eyes and a lost expression that Elena recognized all too well. I lost my husband," the woman said quietly. "And everyone keeps giving me these self-help books about healing and moving on, but I don't want to move on. I just want to understand why it still hurts so much." Elena's chest tightened. "I know exactly what you need." She led the woman to the grief section and pulled out 3 books: a memoir about loss, a collection of essays, and a slim volume of poetry. "These won't tell you how to get over it, but they might help you feel less alone in it." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." "Take your time. Read what speaks to you, and know that it's okay if it keeps hurting. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong." After the woman left with 2 of the books, Margaret appeared at Elena's shoulder. "You're good at this." "At what?" "At seeing people, really seeing them." Elena shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I just know what it's like." "Exactly. That's why you're good at it." That night, Elena told Declan about the encounter over dinner. "She reminded me of myself," Elena said, lost and angry and desperate for someone to tell her she wasn't crazy for still being a mess. "What did you tell her?" "That it was okay to be a mess, that grief doesn't have a timeline." Declan set down his fork. "Did you believe it when you said it?" "I'm starting to." "Good." They cleaned up together, a routine they'd fallen into without discussion. Declan washed, Elena dried, and they moved around each other in the small kitchen with an ease that would have seemed impossible 3 months ago. "I've been thinking," Declan said as he handed her a plate. "About? About what comes next, for me." Elena paused mid-dry. "What do you mean? I've spent my whole life doing one thing, being one kind of person, and I'm done with it, but I don't know what replaces it." He drained the sink and turned to face her. "I'm not good at much besides what I was good at, and I don't want to do that anymore." "So what do you want to do?" "I don't know. That's the problem." Elena set down the plate. "What did you want to be, before everything? Before your father's business? Before all of it?" Declan was quiet for a long moment. "I wanted to build things, real things. I was good with my hands when I was young, liked woodworking, construction. Thought maybe I'd be a carpenter or something." "So why didn't you?" "Because my old man said it was a waste, that we had a family business and I had responsibilities, so I did what I was told." He leaned against the counter. "By the time I realized I could have said no, it was too late. I was already too deep. It's not too late now. I'm 38 years old, Elena. Little late to start a new career. People start over at 40, 50, 60. You're not too old, you're just scared." He almost smiled. "When did you get so brave?" "I'm not brave, I'm just tired of letting fear make decisions for me." "Yeah, me too." Over the following weeks, Declan started researching carpentry courses, apprenticeship programs, ways to learn the trade properly. Elena watched him come alive in a way she hadn't seen before, hunched over his laptop at night, sketching furniture designs on scrap paper, talking about joints and grain and techniques she didn't understand but loved hearing about anyway. "You really think you can do this?" she asked one night. "I don't know, but I want to try." "Then try." "Just like that?" "Just like that. You gave me a push when I needed it. Consider this me returning the favor." He enrolled in a weekend woodworking class at a community college in Queens, came home with sawdust in his hair and cuts on his hands, and an expression of pure satisfaction. "I made a box," he told Elena, showing her the small wooden container he'd constructed. "It's not great, but I made it." "It's perfect," she said. "It's crooked. It's yours. That makes it perfect." Spring arrived properly in late April. The garden exploded with color, tulips and daffodils and early roses. Elena had planted most of them, working with a determination that surprised even her. The space transformed from something dead and forgotten into something vibrant and alive. Neighbors started commenting on it, complimenting Declan when they saw him on the street. "Your partner's doing amazing work with that garden," one woman said. Declan didn't correct her, just nodded and said, "Yeah, she is." That night, he mentioned the conversation to Elena. "People think we're together. I know. Margaret does too. She keeps asking when you're going to come by the store so she can meet my boyfriend. What do you tell her? That you're not my boyfriend. Does that bother you? That people assume?" Elena considered it. A few months ago, the idea would have been horrifying. Now it just felt complicated. "I don't know. Does it bother you?" "No." They looked at each other across the kitchen table. The question hung between them, unasked but present. What were they to each other? Not quite friends. Not quite family. Something undefined that didn't fit into easy categories. "We should probably talk about this," Elena said. "Probably. But not tonight." "Not tonight," Declan agreed. But the conversation was coming. They both knew it. The air between them had been charged for weeks now. Small touches that lasted too long, glances that meant something, an awareness that hadn't been there before. Elena had been trying to ignore it, telling herself it was just proximity, just gratitude, just anything but what it actually was. The breaking point came in early May. Elena had been living in Declan's house for 5 months. She had a job, a routine, enough saved up that she could afford a small apartment if she wanted one. She didn't need to stay anymore. But every time she thought about leaving, about looking for her own place, her chest got tight, and her resolve crumbled. She was standing in the garden one evening, deadheading roses, when Declan came out and sat on the bench. "Can we talk?" he asked. Elena's stomach flipped. "About what?" "About why you're still here." She kept her hands busy with the roses. "I told you, I'm staying until I know what comes next. And have you figured it out? No. Elena, look at me. She turned. He was watching her with an expression she'd never seen before. Open, vulnerable, almost nervous. I need to tell you something, he said, and I need you to let me finish before you say anything. Okay, I didn't bring you here just because I owed you. I mean, that's how it started, but it's not why you're still here. You're still here because I... He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. Because I can't imagine this house without you anymore. Because you've made it feel like a home instead of just a place I sleep. Because when I think about you leaving, He stopped again, struggling. I care about you more than I should, more than makes sense, and I don't know what to do with that. But Elena's heart was pounding. Declan, I know it's complicated. I know I'm the last person you should have feelings for. But I need you to know. I need you to know that this isn't guilt anymore. It's something else. The roses forgotten, Elena crossed to the bench and sat beside him. You think I don't know that? I don't know what you know. You're impossible to read sometimes. I know that I should hate you. I know that every logical part of my brain is screaming that this is a terrible idea. That you're the reason Liam's dead and that I lost everything and that I shouldn't trust you, shouldn't care about you, shouldn't want... She stopped, swallowed hard. But I do. I don't know when it happened or how, but I do, and it terrifies me. Why? Because what if I'm wrong? What if this is just Stockholm Syndrome or gratitude or loneliness masquerading as something real? What if I leave and realize it was all just me trying to make sense of chaos? Declan took her hand. Then you leave, and you realize that. And we both move on. But what if it's not? What if it's actually real, and we're both just too scared to admit it? Elena looked at their joined hands, his calloused from woodworking, hers rough from gardening. Two people who'd been broken by the same tragedy, finding their way to something that looked almost like wholeness. I need time, she said quietly. I need to know I can stand on my own before we can be anything. How much time? I don't know, but I need to get my own place. Need to prove to myself that I'm choosing this, not just accepting it because it's easier than leaving. Declan nodded slowly. Okay. You're not going to argue? No, you're right. You need to know you can make it without me, and I need to know you're here because you want to be, not because you have nowhere else to go. So what do we do? You find an apartment, move out, build your life, and if after all that you still want this, want me, then we try. For real. Elena's eyes stung. And if I don't come back? Then I'll be grateful for the time we had and hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her. They sat like that until the sun went down and the mosquitoes drove them inside. Elena found an apartment 2 weeks later. A studio in Prospect Heights, small but bright, with a window overlooking a tree-lined street. It was affordable, close to the bookstore, and entirely hers. She signed the lease with shaking hands. Moving day was harder than she'd expected. It wasn't like she had much, clothes, books, a few personal items. But packing them felt final in a way that made her chest ache. Declan helped, carrying boxes down to the car he'd borrowed without being asked. You don't have to help, Elena said. I know. They made the drive in silence. The new apartment was on the 3rd floor of a converted brownstone. Declan carried boxes up the stairs without complaint, setting them where Elena directed. When everything was inside, he stood in the middle of the empty space, hands in his pockets. It's nice, he said. It's small. Small is good, manageable. Elena nodded, suddenly unable to speak. I should go, Declan said. Let you settle in. Yeah. He moved toward the door, then stopped, turned back. Elena? Yeah? I meant what I said, about wanting this to be real, but only if it's what you want. No pressure, no expectations. I know. Good. He left. Elena stood in her new apartment, surrounded by boxes, and tried to figure out if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the worst. The first few weeks were rough. Elena threw herself into work, into making the apartment feel like home, into building a life that was separate from Declan. She made friends with her neighbors, started going to a book club that met at the store, took herself to movies and restaurants and did all the things independent people did. And she was miserable. Not because the apartment was bad or the job wasn't fulfilling or she couldn't handle being alone. She was miserable because none of it felt right without Declan. She'd wake up and reach for her phone to text him about something funny a customer said, then remember they'd agreed to space. She'd cook dinner and set the table for one and hate every minute of it. She'd lie in bed at night in her too quiet apartment and wish she could hear him moving around downstairs. Margaret noticed. You look like someone kicked your dog. I don't have a dog. Figure of speech. What's wrong? Elena wiped down the counter, not meeting her boss's eyes. I left someone. Someone I care about. Because I needed to prove I could make it on my own. And I've proven it. I'm making it. But I'm not happy. So go back. It's not that simple. Why not? Because what if I'm only going back because being alone is hard? What if I can't tell the difference between love and convenience? Margaret snorted. Honey, if it was just convenience, you wouldn't be this miserable. Convenience is easy. She gestured at Elena's obviously exhausted face. This is what it looks like when you miss someone who actually matters. How do I know for sure? You don't. That's the whole point. Love is a risk. You either take it or you don't. But don't not take it because you're scared of making a mistake. You'll regret that more than you'll regret trying and failing. Elena went home that night and pulled out her phone, stared at Declan's number for 10 minutes before finally typing a message. Can we talk? His response came immediately. When? Tomorrow. After work? I'll pick you up. He was waiting outside the bookstore when her shift ended, leaning against his car in a way that made Elena's stomach flip. She got in without a word. They drove to Prospect Park and walked in silence until they found a bench overlooking the lake. How have you been? Declan asked. Good. Fine. The apartment's coming together. That's good. Yeah. More silence. Elena fidgeted with the strap of her bag. I miss you, she said finally. I know that's probably not what I'm supposed to say after I'm the one who left, but it's the truth. I miss you. I miss you too. I've been trying to figure out if what I feel is real or just habit or trauma bonding or whatever else it could be besides actual feelings. And I don't think it matters because real feelings can come from trauma. They can come from habit. That doesn't make them less valid. She turned to face him. I love you. I don't know when it started or if it makes sense or if we're going to crash and burn, but I love you, and I want to try. Declan's expression softened. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He pulled her close, kissing her forehead. We're going to screw this up, both of us. We're too damaged not to. Probably, but maybe that's okay. Maybe two broken people can still build something whole. Maybe. They sat there as the sun set, holding each other, and for the first time in either of their lives, the future felt like something worth hoping for. They didn't rush. Elena kept her apartment, and they dated like normal people. Dinners, movies, long walks through the city. They argued sometimes about small things and big ones, but they'd learned how to fight without destroying each other. Learned that honesty, even when it hurt, was better than silence. 6 months after Elena moved out, Declan finished his first real furniture project, a bookshelf he'd built from scratch. He gave it to her as a birthday present, and she cried when she saw it. It's not perfect, he said, pointing out the spots where the joints didn't quite line up. It's perfect, she insisted. She moved back into the brownstone on a cold day in November, exactly 1 year after he'd found her on that corner. This time, it felt different. She wasn't a guest or a charity case. She was choosing to be there, choosing him. They stood in the garden together, looking at the space they'd brought back to life. We should plant something, Elena said. Something that blooms in winter. Like what? Hellebores. They're tough. They survive the cold. Like us. Like us. They planted them together that afternoon, kneeling in the dirt side by side. And when spring came, the flowers bloomed exactly as they were supposed to. Not perfect, not without scars, but alive and beautiful anyway. A year after that, Declan proposed. Not with a grand gesture, just a quiet question asked over breakfast on an ordinary Tuesday. Elena said yes without hesitation. They got married in the garden, just the two of them and a judge. Margaret stood as witness, crying through the whole ceremony. Elena wore a simple dress and no ring. She'd never gotten another one after selling the first. But Declan gave her a wooden box he'd made, carved with both their initials and the date they'd met. For keeping important things, he said. Like what? Like memories. Like promises. Like whatever matters most. Elena kissed him. Thank you. For finding me. For not giving up. For giving me a reason to want to be found. Thank you for staying, for seeing me as more than my worst mistake, for teaching me that it's never too late to become someone better. They didn't live happily ever after, because life isn't a fairy tale. They fought, they struggled, they had bad days and worse ones. But they also had good days. Days where the garden bloomed and the sun was warm, and they remembered why they'd chosen this hard, complicated, beautiful thing called love. 2 years into their marriage, they started a foundation in Liam's name. It helped people who'd lost everything, provided housing assistance, job training, support services. Elena ran it, pouring all the pain she'd carried into something that actually helped. Declan funded it and built furniture for their offices, using his hands to create instead of destroy. It didn't erase the past. Nothing could, but it transformed it into something that mattered. Something that honored the man they'd both loved and lost. Something that proved even the worst mistakes could be turned into meaning if you were willing to do the work. One night, 5 years after that first dinner at the diner, Elena and Declan sat in their garden watching fireflies. The space had become something extraordinary. Roses and lavender and herbs, all thriving under Elena's care. "Do you ever think about that day?" Elena asked. "When you found me on that corner?" "Every day." "Do you wonder what would have happened if you'd walked past?" "All the time. But then I remember I didn't, and that's what matters." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. "I used to think my life ended when Liam died, that everything after was just going through the motions until I could stop. And now? Now I think maybe some things have to end before other things can begin. The life I thought I'd have ended, but this life, our life, it's real too. Different, but real." "Better?" She thought about it. "Not better, just mine, ours, built on truth instead of what we thought we were supposed to be." Declan kissed the top of her head. "I'll take it. Me too." They sat there until the fireflies faded and the stars came out, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something worth keeping. It wasn't the life either of them had planned. It was scarred and complicated and born from tragedy. But it was theirs, and that made it precious. In the end, that's what love is. Not finding someone perfect, but finding someone willing to be imperfect alongside you. Someone willing to face hard truths and make hard choices and carry the weight of the past without letting it crush the future. Someone who sees your worst and chooses you anyway. Elena and Declan had both been broken. But broken things, when mended with care and honesty and time, can become stronger than they ever were whole. Not because the cracks disappear, but because you learn to see the beauty in them. Learn that survival isn't just about enduring. It's about finding reasons to keep going even when giving up would be easier. They'd given each other that reason. And in doing so, they'd proven that redemption isn't about erasing mistakes. It's about refusing to let those mistakes define you. It's about choosing every single day to be better than you were yesterday, to build instead of destroy, to love instead of hide. It's about having the courage to begin again, even when you're terrified, especially then. And as Elena sat in the garden she'd brought back to life, with the man who'd helped her find her way back to living, she finally understood what Liam had tried to tell her all those years ago. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is keep going, keep trying, keep believing that tomorrow might be better than today. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it, and they were worth it. All of it. Every hard moment, every painful choice, every fear overcome. Worth it.